Welcome to our leader exchange. Great to see familiar returning faces. Great to see new faces. Well, not new faces, but new faces and new faces who are for the first time at a leader exchange here. I am Barbara Sennrich. I'm the founder and the CEO of the Change Resilient Advantage Group. And we partner with leaders to make change work in practice and enable their teams to adopt new ways of working. And today, our leader exchange is about the leadership and culture conditions that only you as leaders can create to make sure that AI adoption will succeed. And this is a topic that is really, it's really dear to me. And I want to share a little bit why. During my corporate career, before I started the Change Resilient Advantage, I have both gone through and led complex change in organizations. And frankly, most of the time it was a shit show. It didn't go well. Obviously not when I was leading them, those changes, but that's the truth. That's the reality, right? And I see on your faces, you're laughing because you've probably experienced at least one change that didn't go so well, which is why I have founded the Change Resilient Advantage Group. I really wanted to make sure that we do change right and we make it not suck for people. Because I have definitely learned that change adoption it's a human challenge, right? It never fails because we had a bad strategy. It's mostly on the human side that it doesn't go so well. And the reason for that is that change is a nervous system event. When we are going through change, that triggers a threat response. That's how we're wired. That is our biology. When people feel threatened, they don't think clearly. They don't want to experiment. They don't want to take risks. And we need all of that when we are going through change and when we're doing things differently. And so with AI, that pattern gets amplified because AI is a change multiplier. So many things are changing. So there's so much change that's coming towards us. And that means it triggers that threat response on multiple levels all at once. And knowing that whether we like it or not, AI is here to stay. I have decided to double down on my change expertise and that I've built throughout my entire career, and spend 4 months on a rigorous certification specifically focused on AI leadership and culture adoption. That's it. That's what I've decided. I just got lost in my notes. And because AI adoption is like really a human challenge on steroids, if you will, right? Because this amplified threat response, building the right conditions, like the right leadership behaviors, the right culture, is really crucial for that adoption to be successful. And we see that companies who have already started to build that, they are pulling ahead, and it's going to be really difficult to catch up with them. And the other thing is, I've seen, right, through previous changes, there's so much money spent on the technology itself. When nobody uses it, that is such a waste. And really, no company can truly afford that. So making sure that the change sticks, the adoption is real, is a crucial part of this. And, there's this saying, when was the best time to plant a tree? That was a decade ago. And the second best time is today. And I think that is also a play here and is true for us. And as you can tell, I'm passionate about it because I feel this genuine sense of urgency that companies really need to lean in on the human side of AI adoption. So I'm going to hand it over to you in a moment because this is called a leader exchange and not Barbara's webinar. In fact, it's one thing, I'm curious who can relate. There's so many times when I go to a conference or I'm in a room where there are so many smart people together, but we don't connect in a meaningful way. there is so much intelligence present in a room, like, and I look at all of you and I'm like, there's definitely a lot of intelligence present right here. It would be a shame and a waste to not let some of that collective intelligence bubble up. So hearing from each other, first of all, gets us on the same page. And oftentimes also, when I hear somebody else talk about something from their point of view, it sharpens my own viewpoint. It sometimes even changes my viewpoint because I'm learning something. I'm getting a different perspective that I don't myself bring to the conversation. So hearing from each other is really important. Also, you're all very busy people, and yet you've chosen to be here. So I want to know why it is important for you to be here. Before we get there, though, and before I give you the question to contemplate for us to connect on, let's take a deep breath. That is for all of us. It's for me because I'm nervous, right? Because I'm sharing something with you, so I care about, I have like a stake in the ground. I want this to go well. It's also for those of you who have like internally just rolled your eyes at me. You're all very gracious. I haven't seen anybody do it right at my face. But, right, it's like those of you who are like, did she just ask me that we're going to connect and we're going to talk to each other? That is that resistance, that is that threat response that's kicking in, that comes up every single time when we're in an uncommon situation, anything that's unpredictable, because our brain loves predictability. Our brain loves to know what's going to happen next. So being told to do something that you might not like will trigger that stress response. And taking a deep breath and getting present in the now is the simplest and easiest way to stay focused and to mitigate that stress response. So if you're willing, I invite you to relax your shoulders. If you want to, you can even close your eyes. You don't have to, not at all, but just take a deep breath in. And exhale, let it go. We have to breathe anyway, all of us, might as well do it consciously. So take another deep breath in. Exhale, let it go. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Maybe feel your seat on your chair. Take another deep breath in. Getting grounded in your body. Exhale, let it go. Mitigating that stress response and activating our prefrontal cortex so that we can be fully present, so that you can be ready to absorb all the good things that I'm going to share with you today. Now, to what I've promised, the question that we want to connect on. Oops. Here we go. Why is it important for you to be here today? Why is it important for your team, your organization, and maybe even those you... So if your job is to create the conditions for AI to take root and to make it work, your first step is awareness and recognition. And that is the recognition of like where your people are at, how they're thinking about AI, how they feel about AI. Because as we said, AI is, or change in general, is a nervous system event, and everybody responds differently to change, right? Some people thrive through change. I thrive. I freaking love change. Give me some change and I love it, because everything great in my life has ever happened through a big change, right? I moved from New York during the pandemic to live with my now husband. I mean, worked out great, but a lot of uncertainty. I had to navigate it. Some people, they freeze. They want nothing to do with AI, right? They stay far away from it. Other people fight. Those are our stress responses. They make AI the devil. They're like, I want nothing to do with it, and we're all doomed. Like, those are all different responses. And no matter where those people are, how they feel, they need different things from you as a leader as we're leading through this change. So here is what this looks like across your workforce right now. People move through this emotional spectrum from disengagement on the far left to advocacy on the far right. Along these spectrums, we have multiple different characters, right? And those characters include the following cast, and there are multiple more, so nuanced, but we have the disengaged. They are actively against AI. They might even be sabotaging your efforts. We have the indifferent. They are completely checked out. They don't deny AI, but they're not engaging with it at all. And if people are not engaged, they're not going to move. They will just stay out of it. The dismissive, who think AI is a total fad, or if they've seen it all before. The terrified, who are wondering, is my job still going to be here in a year or 2 years from now? We have the people who are totally overwhelmed, and for them, AI is just yet another thing that's going to end up on their plate. We have the unconvinced, the skeptics who like, I want to see some proof before I can believe in this. Show me, where's the money? We have the secret users, right? Those who are already working with it, using it, whether you have sanctioned it or not in your organization. And that's either because the culture hasn't made safe for them to bring it up, or because it's not being talked about at all. It's not, okay, let's have a conversation about who is using AI, how are we using it? We have the optimists, they're like ready to go. And then we have the champions. They're not just using AI, they're not just ready to go, but they want to bring everybody else along. And they're like, let's move this train, we're going. And you'll see this cast across all levels of your organization, right? Your leadership team may feel like, let's go, but they also might be like, actually, not at all. You have people in your organization who say, let's go, and others who say, not at all. And that is normal. That's just how it is. So nobody is in the wrong place, but we have to acknowledge that we're all in different places. And what's really important when we have people who are in different places, we cannot communicate with them. We cannot move them with the same message, along the same timeline, and even with the same approach, right? A lot of organizations, they roll out AI with one communication campaign, and that's it. But it only speaks to certain people, where the reality is there are multiple individual journeys that are happening for individuals as they are moving through the spectrum, because adoption requires an emotional progression for every single individual. And that progression really has to be led intentionally. So I want to pause here and would love to hear from you, and feel free to put it in the chat. Like, where are you on this spectrum? And where do you think your colleagues are? Do you know where your colleagues are? And what characters do you see most prominently in your organization? Or so feel the fear, because if you read the headlines, it all says like, we're going to be all replaced by AI in the next couple of years, right? And I personally don't think that is going to be true, but there's definitely going to be a shift in how we reinvent roles, and that has to be part of the conversation. And that is that's not an easy conversation to have at all. I want to talk about 3 gaps that you're seeing in an organization when you're leading a workforce that is all over that spectrum, right? With that single approach. And none of these gaps are about the technology. They're all about the human being and the humanness of us. And so the first gap is the alignment gap. And there are different variations of that gap, right? The most common one is between leadership and middle management. But the alignment gap can also show up between, let's say, a board and the executive team, or between divisions, or across functions, depending on how big your organization is. But the pattern is always the same. Somebody's excited, somebody is not excited, and that work doesn't translate because there is misalignment. So let me illustrate that version of between the leadership team and the middle management. When leadership is excited and the CEO is like giving a speech, and the executive team, they put it into their strat plan, but then nothing happens because middle managers, who are actually responsible for translating that vision into execution, they are misaligned. They might be silently resistant themselves, or they may have a different understanding of what that looks like or what it needs. There are multiple various reasons, but the bottom line is like the vision stays at the top, and in reality, like at the bottom, it doesn't look anything like that vision at the top. Then we have the capability gap, and that is about knowing that AI exists in general, and what AI can do for you specifically in your role on Tuesday afternoon, right? Most trainings stay very conceptual and share like, this is what AI can do in general. Rob, I hope your HR training was more specific than that, right? Because otherwise the question is, how does that matter? How is it like, I don't see how this is specifically helping me. And if we don't trust it, we're not going to move along on that spectrum. And then here is that identity gap. And I think that is the toughest one to address and talk about, that people are afraid. Because when you introduce AI, it's not just that we're changing how people work, but we're actively challenging who people believe they are. It's when you think about like just the teams in your organization. Thomas, let's take finance, right? When your finance team, who have built a career on accuracy and precision and analysis, what does that mean when AI can do it like this, super fast, because they recognize the pattern? That is indeed a strength. Or we think about the marketing team. Their value comes from their creative instincts. What does that look like when I suddenly can create like 50 variations of a campaign in 10 seconds? That changes. Or even like the role of a manager, who typically like the role was having authority, having all the answers. Now AI has access to information that we cannot amass throughout our entire lifetime. Like, what does that do to our role? What does that mean? And because we're talking about existential questions here, it's like, will AI replace me? Even more important, what is my value as a human being? And what is my role going to be now? Those are conversations. Those are questions that need to be had, that need to be addressed. And until they aren't addressed openly and honestly and with real support, forget about adoption. It's not going to happen, because that is always going to be in the way. So again, I want to kick it back to you. I'd love to know, like, what are the gaps that you're seeing in your company right now, or other conversations you have if you're not working with a company. Even what are the gaps you're hearing about, you talk to other people about. What's next? How do we lead? And how do we close those gaps? How do we get people across, or like move through that emotional spectrum? It is not with the leadership model that most of us were trained on, which has traditionally been more top down, right? Having all the answers. That leadership style was built for an era when leaders had all the answers, when the path was very clear. You went from A to B, and also when change happened more slowly and we could plan for it. But spoiler alert, that era is over. Change is happening so fast now. And so the leadership model that works now and is needed is built on 5 things. First being orchestration, both coordinating across complexity instead of controlling every single variable. But then also there is an orchestration between human and AI, because Thomas, you mentioned agents. They will become our team members. That is happening already. Like, that is a conversation we need to have. Then there is curiosity. The willingness for all of us to say, I don't know, and to mean that and model it. There is public learning. Showing your teams that you are figuring this out too, and not have that expectation that we all just know how to do it, but that we're in it together. And then a key piece is psychological safety, right? Creating an environment where people feel they can experiment, they can fail, they can grow without fear. And you're creating that environment through actions, not through words. Because even if you tell people this is a safe space, But if you're under pressure and you snap at someone because they make a mistake, they're not going to feel safe to continue experimenting or even like making mistakes. So actions speak louder than words. And then finally, what's really underpinning all of that is open and honest, intentional communication. Human to human, meeting people where they are at. That is critical. And of course, there are like a million other things, but those are some of the key pieces that are really crucial in this new leadership model. And I would love to know from you, like, which ones do you feel might close the biggest gaps that you're seeing if you really leaned into one or two of those leadership behaviors in the coming weeks and months? Or also maybe what's the biggest change to how you've been leading so far? And also, if you're already leading this way, what do you want to double down on? Because I don't want to make the assumption that we're all old school leaders. Let me bring up some music again because it is Friday. We should have love to hear which of those leadership behaviors do you want to lean into, feel could close the biggest gap. And what would that look like in practice? What's the no 5? Oh, number 5. Yeah, communication. I got it. Got it. I agree. Curiosity and learning in public. Yeah, which requires psychological safety. These seem most immediate, but all are important. Orchestration, psychological safety. Yeah. Our employees are not sure how to use AI tools in the workplace, similar to management training. Our leaders need to take a proactive approach to training. Yep, Jennifer, definitely need to be learning in public. I feel like because we have different comfort levels, exactly. Those with some tools and knowledge are not freely sharing. Yeah, so important, learning in public. Honest, intentional communication. Excellent, excellent. All right. We are in the final stretch here. We're in the final stretch here. Those leadership behaviors are really important, and they alone are not going to ensure AI adoption, because AI adoption requires an integrated system that operates at 4 levels. Level 1 is awareness and narrative. Those are the stories your people tell themselves about AI, and you tell yourself about AI. Level 2 is behavior and culture, what people do every day in their daily work and how they interact with each other. Level 3 are systems and integration, the tools, the platforms, the technology. And then level 4 is governance and stewardship, how we actually sustain AI adoption. And right now, most companies heavily lean into level 3, right? Technology, the tools, the platforms. And obviously, these are very important conversations to have, very important decisions to make. And they're only one side of the equation. We've already established that adoption really is a human challenge. And therefore, the real leverage is in levels 1 and 2, which is the human system. And then that's where like the actual transformation begins. And then there's level 4, which is what sustains the transformation and ensures true adoption. So I'm curious, like, at what level are your conversations happen right now? Like, are you predominantly talking about tools? Are you predominantly talking about people and culture? Or are you talking about sustainability? Where do you think are your AI conversations happening right now. All right, so let me show this to you, because wherever your conversations are happening today, the work that needs to go into making AI adoption successful requires a whole architecture that sits beneath level 1, 2, and 4. There are 12 domains across 4 areas. The first 3 domains, and actually let me step to the side so you can see all my all the text. Level so the first area, is the first 3 domains. That's the leadership core. That is the foundation to it all. Then on the next 3 domains are the culture engine. That is where the transformation either takes hold or takes root or gets rejected. The third level, or the third area, is identity and risk. And those are actually 2 things that not every AI strategy thinks about. It's often ignored. And then last but not least, we have that sustainability piece. That's where you make it last, where you really make sure adoption is going to be long term. I'm not going to walk you through this in detail today. That's on purpose, because frankly, each domain warrants its own session. It's very rich. But I want to leave you with a holistic view of what it actually takes to foster the conditions for AI adoption. What we've touched on today is the entry point to the leadership core and a little bit of a glimpse into the culture engine, because recognizing where your people are on that emotional spectrum, that is totally crucial, because that is what's happening right now. That is what's real for people. That's the starting point. And as I said, I don't want to overwhelm you by showing you this picture, because the reality is, and the good news is, undoubtedly, there are areas where, or there are domains here where your organization already is strong, right? You're not starting from zero in every of that domain, but your job is going to be to identify where the holes are that you need to plug. That's the job. So you're not starting from zero, you're not starting from scratch, but it's really important to identify where are we strong, where are we not so strong, so that we can get really strong at the whole picture. Let me land this plane for you. Talked a lot, going to do a little bit more talking. The technology is going to keep evolving, right? Like what's state of the art today is going to be baseline tomorrow. Your tech stack can be copied once you have one. But what cannot be copied is going to be your culture. The way people think about AI, the way they use it, the way they experiment, and like how they trust each other throughout this change. That culture can neither be copied, it cannot be bought either. That is your competitive advantage, truly. What also is true, that it cannot be built in a day, even in a few weeks. The companies who are already plugging the holes across those 12 domains, they're pulling ahead. And that gap is widening. It continues to widen, and it's driven by like decisions that leaders are making today and every day moving forward.